that in the run-up to 2024, expect two major things to happen. One is a communal conflagration. The other is a caste conflagration. Both are predominantly used divisive tactics for enemies of India within India and outside of India. Which is why you see every person internationally or in India talking only about the Muslims.
Namaste and welcome to another episode of A Questioning Mind. I'm your host Sagarika, and it is my absolute pleasure today to have a new and very exciting guest with us. I have Savio Rodrigues, somebody who's already extremely well known. But Savio, before we begin, I'd love for you to walk us through your journey of being a common person before you became a very well recognized journalist and writer, and then a politician.
Well, I still am a common person, Savika, and that I don't think is ever going to change, ever in my life, because I come from a common man's home, and even though I grew up in the Middle East, and then of course I came back to India and studied, and then moved to Goa where I started my business and started my media entity called Goa Chronicle. And then of course I had the wonderful blessing to be sort of brought into understanding politics in India by the late Mr. Manor Parikar. So having taken all that into account, there's one thing I've realized, no matter how high I get politically or in business or as a journalist, I think my roots are very much with the common person. So you would see me standing on the road eating a ras omelette or a vada pav, just as you would see me in a Taj hotel. Makes no difference to me. In fact, I enjoy the ras omelette and the vada pav more than I do sitting inside the Taj. And I'm a guy who likes to, have his limbu juice on the road or any juice. In fact, in Goa, if you ask many people, they would see me around in my little kinetic with a helmet, just driving wherever I want to, being, as anonymous as I want to be till I take off the helmet, and that's when
Right.
people recognize who I am. So I don't think you change when you become a politician or when you become a journalist that is known. There are times when I have gone into. I'll give you a really funny example. So I went to one of these new chemists in the area where I stay in Goa, which is in Margao, which is very close to my constituency, Velim as well. So Velim is a constituency I work in. So I went to this pharmaceutical pharmacy rather, and there's these two people, the owner, who is a slightly elderly gentleman, and his friend were talking, and they're talking in Konkani, saying that this boy looks so much like Savio who comes on TV. And I'm looking at, so I asked him, I said, who you referring to? He says, you look like. Then he tells me, he says, no, son, you look like Savio who comes on TV. I said, have you met Savio who comes on TV? He says, no, 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 we'd like to meet him. I said, hi, I'm Savio Rodrigues, and this is my card. So they were like completely, I don't know, happy would be the right word to say, that they met me. They didn't know I lived there, because
Right.
I don't normally show my face because I travel a lot. But some once in a while I will go and meet up with a few people, and so I have this whole set of people in around, common people that you can just go, like the vada pav person who's there. Every evening I'll pass by and the lady would ask me, do you want a vada pav? Because I have this habit of just coming in and picking up a vada pav and or standing there and eating. So I don't think that changes. I don't think that will ever change in me. And I'm just thankful for the blessings that I have, and I will continue to be grateful for it. That's what it is.
That's a lovely way to look at it. Savio, I think that a lot of what, and of course I could be wrong, but you've become extremely well known for a lot of your views, and much of it has to do with your identity as an Indian Christian who's involved in politics from what is considered a predominantly Hindu party. So, if you could explain why that is important, and I will just add on an anecdotal note that I grew up. I spent quite a lot of time in Bombay growing up, and when I was in Mumbai, I had several Christian friends who, because of the kind of educational center that I was in, it was. Not very posh, even slightly, but we were very education focused, and people were quite open to the BJP being a valid political party. These were Christian friends, and we've actually had open conversations about how, they just did not like, say, the Congress was the only viable alternative at the time. They were very open about supporting the BJP, and I've seen that change. Like, even those same people have grown up to um, become Instagram posters which are very anti-BJP, etc. So I think there's a slight disconnect between politics and policies, and that identity plays a very crucial factor when determining who you support.
So coming back to your question on identity, BJP being seen as a Hindu majority party. So let me give you my views purely as a citizen of India, okay? Because that's just something I consider to be above every other hat or garb that I wear, right? As a citizen of India, my only identity is that of an Indian, which is nation first, right? And that is something that I've always believed, which is why on certain issues, even at a state level in Goa, I have raised questions against my own party on issues that I've considered to be wrong in ethically and legally, right? Now, why does that happen? That happens is because I think we as citizens must realize that as citizens of a country, you owe a certain debt to your country because your identity globally comes from your country. Your identity does not come by your religion. So let's say I go abroad. The fact that I'm a Christian makes no difference to anybody else over there. I'm not carrying Christian on my passport, am I? I'm carrying the fact that I'm an Indian. So your passport is what? Your passport's an Indian passport. Your passport's a Portuguese passport or a United Arab Emirates passport. So your identity in the world is derived or sort of focused on your passport, which means your nation, your nationality. So that becomes supreme. Now, today you might think that the BJP is anti-minority. The majority think that the BJP is working against the Hindus. So you're going to have this confusion, the conflicts happening at all parts of time because that is the nature of that's human nature. Human nature wants to complain when they don't get things the way they want it, and therefore blame the powers that be. So it's normal. And for me as a politician, the recent example I'll give you. So there was a problem at one of the water bodies in the constituency where I come from. Okay. One of the punch members called me. I happened to be in Goa the last couple of days. Otherwise, I was traveling a lot. So they called me and they called one of the karyakartas. The karyakarta called me and we went to look at the site with the punch member. And we traced the levels of contamination in terms of from where it was coming, where it was going, how it was penetrating to the fields. We did all that Reiki. And being me, I called up the chairman of the Pollution Control Board. And I said, listen, my friend, we have this issue. Can you please send somebody immediately to have an investigation done? In about an hour and a half, the investigator of the Pollution Control Board was at the spot. Okay. We showed him where the contaminations were flowing, how it was happening, what is the probability, and we told him to conduct the investigation. The next day he came with the samples and they took samples of the water, etc., etc. And this morning they issued a report where that particular fish factory is supposed to shut down its operations until they comply to the rules and the laws that are being maintained, especially as far as discharging their effluents are concerned. So there has to be some sort of a mechanism that they do not discharge that into the fields.
Mm.
That was what the entire thing. Now, all the political parties, in particular the MLA of that particular place, has been obviously trying to claim credit for it, and I have no issues with that. Personally, you could be an opposition MLA and you want to take credit for it, great. What am I interested in? I don't need to be on television. I'm constantly on television on a regular basis. I don't need the credit. What I require is for the problem to be solved,
Mm.
right? Even last time when there was a telephone tower, mobile tower, sorry, that was coming inside the school. There was a government school, and they're putting in the mobile tower inside the entrance of the school, in front of the door where the kids walk. Okay, just next to the door, and they removed the playpen area. So this was in the playpen area. They put the mobile towers. So the villagers, of course, raised an issue. Again, the villagers called me. Being me, I went. I looked at it. I was disgusted and shocked by the lack of sympathy that they had towards the kids. I put a phone call in to the chief minister. The chief minister heard me out and very wisely decided to do what was right, which was ensure that the mobile tower gets removed from there. Right? Following that, of course, the MLA himself, everybody was like, "Oh, the MLA has done a great job." He called the CM. I said, "That's fine." What was my intent? My intent was to remove the mobile tower. The
Mm.
teachers know, the students know, the people who call me know.
Mm.
Do I need the publicity? I get it every day anyway, right?
Mm.
So the idea, what I'm trying to bring out, is that today we have to see ourselves as citizens above everybody else. It's not about politics. You see, eventually you will play politics. You would want to bring your person down. But I'm not into that. I was never into that, and I don't think I'll ever be into that. Yes, for example, if you tell me that a politician is corrupt and I have to raise an issue of corruption against him, I will. But
Mm.
to play petty politics, I'm not interested. It's really a waste of time. I have so many other businesses to look after, working with new technologies, trying to innovate with our startups. I don't think I have the time to play petty politics at a state level or at a national level, right? So for
Mm.
me, being a citizen is most important. Being an Indian is most important. But over and above being an Indian, it is being a human that's most important. So everything that I do, whether it's investments in startups or the kind of work we want to do at the constituency level or at a nation level, is to do with touching on those aspects that benefit humanity. Now, for example, my daughter started the Velim Eco pencils, right, which are pencils made out of recycled newspapers from Velim Baga itself, which we are now exporting to Italy, Israel. We'll start Sri Lanka very soon. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because, hey, listen, we got waste paper available, newspapers. It's a 1 day worth of a newspaper.
Mm.
Otherwise, you can eat your vada pavs from those newspapers because they get packed up and your samosas and all. Why not do something worthwhile with it? So we did it. We have now started the Velim brand. It's available in some of the stationaries in Goa. The chief minister has gone a step further. He's going to ensure that government offices use the Velim eco-friendly pencils, or any other eco-friendly pencils that can come out of the Goa market that are there. He's willing to move down that path. So you have a lot of support. See, eventually, every person, whether it's the chief minister of Goa, whether it's any other minister that we work with at a state level or even at the central level, they want to do good for people.
Mm.
If you go to them with good ideas that benefit the people, thereby benefiting them politically and within the sphere of their work, why would they not take it? This notion of corruption, which does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't,
Mm.
right? I haven't seen it personally with my people as far as Goa is concerned or in the central level is concerned. So until I see it personally, because I'm a business guy myself, right? Until I see it personally, I cannot vouch for it. But I'm not saying that there cannot be.
Mm.
Corruption is a cesspool and can
Mm.
exist.
Mm.
But we've been working with certain projects with the government. I'll give you a project that we were doing. It's taken us 1 year to get approval, go through the process of tendering and things like that. And finally, it's taken a year. That was for river rejuvenation. So they're willing to give us a chance to try one river out, which
Yes.
we are okay, till we prove ourselves and then look at other contracts. And that's fine. That's the process. So today, what matters to me as an individual is, can Savio make a difference with his knowledge, with his ideas, and with his ability to convince people on the other end to follow on a path that is for betterment of humanity and betterment of the country, right? If I'm able to do that, I'm okay with it. See, in the end, I have to come home to my two daughters and my wife. We have to sit down and have great dinner. We are not here to pull anybody down. We're not here to make unethical money. We have been blessed by that. God has blessed us quite sufficiently. You know, what we want is to leave a legacy so that people realize that, hey, listen, this guy has contributed more than just politics. He was not a politician who just came in and said, okay, this politician is bad, that politician is bad. There was, during elections, there was this story going around that Savio does not even give water bottles to people working for him during the elections. So I started to laugh. I said, obviously, I don't give you water bottles because A, I don't like plastic, number one. Okay. So there is a water can there in the office. Everybody had to meet in the office before they came, right? We had a briefing and then you went out to reach out to people. So you were told to fill your water bottles at the office, at the election office, and then go out, right? So that we stop wastage of water bottles. It's not that we were completely non-plastic, but we tried our best to be as much less plastic as possible,
Sure.
right? Now, if you didn't do that, how can you blame me for it? The water was made. So the people are used to a very different form of politics. They were like, okay, I had a lady who came to me saying that about 72 years of age, saying, Baba, I'm getting 5,000 rupees to vote. If you give me 3,000 rupees, I will vote for you. I looked at her and I said, Auntie, with all due respect, I like you and, you're known. But why would I give you 3,000 rupees to vote for me? I mean, when you're ever in trouble and you need to go to the hospital or you need me to come pick you up and take you to the hospital, I'll be there. But why should I value your vote at 3,000 rupees when I value you as a person much more than that? No, but Baba, that's the way of the world. I said, I'm sorry, Auntie, you please don't vote for me. Please. It's my honest advice. You don't vote for me. If you want to take the 5,000 rupees from somebody else, I won't even hold it against you. But
Yes.
I value you more than that. If your value is just that, then I'm sorry. That's your thought. It's not the way I think about it. But you can still call me whenever you're in trouble and I'll help you. So
That's actually quite illuminating because this has been something that has been cited in the recent Karnataka politics as well, and I think you've also been very honest about mentioning the shortcomings of the party you are associated with when it comes to the same state. So that is refreshing, but. Coming back to the question of identity, you kind of stand out, right? There's a lot of Muslim BJP spokespeople and participants, but there's not so many Christian BJP stalwarts, so to speak, and which is something that makes you quite distinct and popular. In that, how do you see that the churches that are influencing other rather significant number of Christians around the country, how do you see the churches changing their stance possibly, or the people themselves making up their minds based on policy and results?
you see, Sagrika, the Christian community have always been very forward thinking and participatory as far as nation building is concerned, right? Since independence and even before independence, right? They might have, to the best of my knowledge, negativity towards the BJP. Okay. But that again is variable. So you cannot say that there's a large amount of hate against the BJP. You cannot quantify it. But what you can do is realize that certain actions by the Catholic Church in over a period of time, certain members of the Christian laity, as you would call it, as well as to voter what you would call voter performance against for or against the BJP, right? So you do have a considerable amount of people that might not like the BJP. But that again comes to a thought process. You see, the general perception that is being created in society is that the minorities are in danger. The Christians are in danger because way back in 2018,
Mm, mm,
Archbishop Anil Kuto made that statement and I countered his statement. And that's when I
mm,
faced a lot of friction from the community itself. But I asked the community, let's even assume what Archbishop Anil Kuto is saying is right. Okay, let's look at the recent figures of the case that is in Supreme Court. Certain Christian organizations have raised the issue that Christians are in danger and have taken the case to Supreme Court.
mm.
Out of the number of cases that have been filed or claimed to exist, which is about 495 cases, half of those cases are not even registered in any competent authority that is capable of taking any action against a complaint. They're
Right.
just said to be cases, right? So, which brings that down to 200 odd. Out of the 230, 240 odd remaining cases that exist, you have 70 to 75 cases that have to deal with property disputes
Oh.
between communities. Okay? So, property disputes, COVID related fights that were there between the communities, some superstitious related cases. And these are all part of the affidavit filed by the government in response to the Supreme Court's notice. Okay, the
Mm,
case that's going on. So, you have a remaining of about 135 odd cases that might exist, right? Out of those 135, 155, sorry, cases that are still remaining, they have been filed at a competent authority and are mostly concentrated in 8 states where you normally have this friction between Christians and Hindus supposedly occurring, right? Now, 155 are the cases which are registered with the in an FIR and an investigation is going on, and there will be an outcome to that investigation. Now, what is the population of Christians in India? Over 2 crores,
mm,
right? So you're saying that for friction of 155 people, 2
mm.
crore people are in danger. Where is the justification? I'm not able to understand if you had to look at it logically. Because at the end of the day, I'm a logical person, right? So I'm not saying that there will not be friction, but is that unusual? Can you look at what happens in the US as far as the anti-Semitic or the hate crimes against the Jews are concerned? On an average, there are about 1,500, 1,600 cases. In UK, that's far higher. Does that mean that America and UK are dangerous for Jews, a minority over there? What about the cases of hate crimes against the Muslims and the Hindus in America?
Yes.
Are we even looking at that? No, right? Nobody talks about that. So why does 155 cases in an over 2 crore population become international news? I'm not able to understand unless there is an intent to demonize Hindus, demonize the BJP, and demonize Modi. And that's where I have a problem. Is it wrong to fight for the rights of the Christians? The answer is no. It is your fundamental duty to fight for rights of
Mm,
every citizen of this country. Do the Christians have a right to preach, to profess their faith? Yes, they do. But proselytization in any form from any religion is questionable.
mm,
And that is what I keep talking about. I said there is absolutely no need to proselytize because at the end of the day, a person who's an adult who makes a choice. Let's say I'm an adult and I'm a Christian, but I choose to join Hinduism or Buddhism as an adult. That's my choice.
mm,
But if I am forced or I'm coerced
mm.
or allured, and there is a law that defines coercion, allurement, or force, and it falls in the ambit of it, then so be it. No, but if there is no law, then there can be no fight.
Right.
Therefore, it is important to have a law that
Mm,
clearly defines what anti-conversion bill is all about or what conversion is all about. And if you see what happened in Karnataka, it was the anti-conversion bill that Archbishop Peter Machado spoke strongly about. That was one of the reasons why the Christians not going to vote for the BJP in the first place. Now, whether that is right or wrong is justifiable and debatable. But each one has to prove their point as far as the case is concerned. Is BJP against the minority? I can tell you without a doubt, they are not. Prime Minister Modi probably faces more criticism for doing more for the Muslims and the Christians than for the Hindus. Well, it's like being
Yes.
caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. You sway this way, you get bombarded. You sway that way, you get bombarded. Being the prime minister, you're going to get bombarded one way or the other, whether you do good or not. That's why you look at people from a completely secular perspective. Do you know, if you were to ask an average Indian to define secularism, Sadhika, do you know what he will define it as? How would you define secularism?
A separation of church and state, but typically religion and state. But I realize that the definition is kind of skewed for the majority. And
Correct.
to
So
be honest, our constitution itself is not secular because it does not make that distinction.
correct. So secularism in Indian terminology or in Indian acceptance has always been thought as being the acceptance of all religion as far as matters of governance is concerned. Okay, but the clinical definition of secularism is acceptance of no religion in matters of governance, because the state has to look at you as a citizen, not as somebody with a religion attached to him. Right? That is exactly the way Narendra Modi has been working over a period of time, right? So today, in fact, the only I don't call Sanatan Dharma a religion. I think it's far more spiritual in its essence, and Sanatan Dharma is truly secular. No, it
Yes.
doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or an atheist, but follow the practice of Sanatan Dharma, which is to to um, to find the God within you and the God around you, right? So that is what true secularism is, and I think we need to understand that more deeply. So today, the conflict, see, India is always going to be broken, and I've said this on numerous channels that in the run up to 2024, expect two major things to happen. One is a communal conflagration, the other is a caste conflagration. Both are prominently used divisive tactics for enemies of India within India and outside of India, which is why you see every person internationally or in India talking only about the Muslims,
Right.
right? A 20 crore plus population cannot be considered to be vulnerable minority in a country like India, because there are minorities that are lesser. For example, the Christians, the Jains, the Parsis, the Buddhists, they don't seem to be crime victims all the time. The Muslims do. The Muslims cry victims all the time because some radical elements of the Islamic world within India and outside have been constantly feeding them with this mindset that unless you play the victim, you will get nothing. And
Right.
that is what happens all over the world. That is why President Obama, in his talk yesterday after Prime Minister Modi's visit, the ongoing visit in the US, mentions about Muslims and
Muslim.
supposed atrocities. I'm trying to wonder, what is he talking about? Which Muslim is under atrocity here? In fact, if you looked at what happened in the Delhi riots, it was the Muslims, in some cases, that led it.
It's a good observation to bring up because he actually cites Muslim India, and that's very threatening because the idea of a Muslim India is what created Pakistan and then Bangladesh. So that's a very dangerous sentiment to, and an irresponsible one as a former state of an apparent strategic ally. But
There are two kinds of Muslims in India, Sagar. There are two kinds of Muslims. One is the Muslim in India. Okay, these are the people who are easily swayed by negative intent from within and outside of India. And then there is the Indian Muslim. The Indian Muslim is committed to Mother India. The Indian Muslim sees
Absolutely.
every other Indian as his brother and sister, and he works towards the betterment of the country. The Muslim in India obviously will live in fear, no? If you are going to support terrorism, if you are going to support anti national activities, you have to live in fear because your loyalty does not lie with India. Your loyalties lie with your masters outside of India. And that is what I find funny because most aggression in radicalism is towards India.
I think we've lost Savio for a bit. I would like to remind you to please like and subscribe if
I'm
you
back.
enjoy these conversations. Sorry, I see that you're back. Sorry.
Sorry.
you,
So,
yeah.
what was I? I was saying that if you look at the Indian or the Muslim in India, the radical Muslim in India, he or she seems to have more radicalism than the original Muslims, which
Mm,
are the Arabs.
mm.
Okay, because it is as though they have to prove their loyalty post their
Absolutely.
conversion. That hey,
Absolutely.
listen, I'm also purebred, pure breed. But what they don't realize is that they're always going to be the unpure breed to the
Mm,
Arabs,
mm, mm.
right? So whether it's how because I lived in the Middle East, it's clearly evident to see how they treat the other Muslims who are non-Arabs. You might
Right.
not see it loudly, but
Oh,
it
they
is
are
there.
loud about it, though, at least on social media. We
Yeah.
often
So
see Pakistanis and Turks get into wars, even though the Turks don't, I don't,
correct.
not Arabs,
So
but
they seem to think that they are going to get favoritism from people in Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. Unfortunately, they don't realize, just like the begging bowl that Pakistan has every time, that is how they look at them as. They look at them as beggars, as irrelevant, just there to carry bombs or to do terror activities. That is
true.
why they funded them for so long. They realized that these guys who are converted are basically like soldiers who are buffoons, who you can tell them that they're doing the work of Allah, and put on them a bomb and send them to die and think that 72 virgins are waiting for them. What they don't realize is that nobody who's died in a attack or done a bomb attack has come back to tell them whether the 72 virgins exist or not.
True.
For all you know, there would have been 72 demons that would have further bombarded them in their next life.
Right.
So that's the stupidity of people in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, who have converted to Islam and think that they are the pure breed. They
Mm.
are not, and they will never be treated like so. The Indian Muslim who's wisen up realizes that his loyalty must lie with India. The Muslim in India, well, only God can help them. I seriously pray to Allah that they wisen up.
So this fear psychosis that you mentioned about the Muslims in India who identify separately and live in fear, do you see that in other minorities, or especially in Christians as well, in recent times, leading to polarization, not just politically but socially? Do you see a separate identity? And why I ask this is because Turks, when they get into tough wars or with Pakistanis, are very supportive of their women, of their culture, which includes social activities like drinking outside sometimes, because they consider themselves a cultural entity. That Turkish culture is separate and we practice our religions at home. Indonesians do that as well. They have a separate Indonesian identity, which is national, which is social, which is cultural. Do you see that an identity crisis that does not allow the Indian Muslim and the Indian Christian uh, I'm not sure it applies to too many others, maybe the Khalistanis, to see themselves as part of a larger social milieu, identify as truly Indian, embrace Sanatan Dharma as a cultural, at least culturally, and participate. Do you see that leading to a lot of social and then political polarization?
The conflict that arises having, being a student of conflict and religion and trying to understand how peace really operates,
Mm,
you need to understand that there is a huge difference between religion, number one, your faith, your belief, which is individual and within a community, a religious community, and then what is your responsibility as a citizen towards your nation or towards your society, right? So when people tend to get confused when they club both of this together, when the religious mindset overlaps the social mindset that is should prevail in a community, right? And that's where the conflict happens. So today, for example, there are certain sections of the people in the Muslim community in India that identify with being an Indian, but they also feel that maybe we are little more than the Indians. For example, the Kashmiri Muslims. Okay, I remember during the abrogation of Article 370, a lot of the Kashmiri Muslim friends that I had, who we shared different views on certain things, were like, we were special, and now we are not special anymore. I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means. He says, no, when by abrogating Article 370, we no longer remain a special set of
mm,
people,
mm,
Kashmiris. I said, please explain this to me, where you as a Kashmiri can come into Goa, set up shops all across the beaches, sell wonderful things that you claim you are selling, but I as a Goan cannot come and set up a shop in Kashmir or own land in Kashmir, but your Kashmiri can own land here. And you are saying that you want to remain special, and what am I supposed to be? Not special,
yeah.
right? And we are all from the same country,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So sometimes some Muslims believe that that because they are a minority, they must have privileges.
Mm,
Okay, I think today, in today's day and age, for one, I don't believe in the concept of reservations at all. Okay, whether it is based on religion or whether it is based on caste. We are 75 years into a year of our independence. The least we could have done was uplift people to bring everybody to an equal parameter. So imagine this, right? You have students who might be from the general category. Okay. I come from a general category, and thank God my kids do very well by God's grace in their studies. But think about this, okay? A guy would would probably do 90%, or a girl would do 90% belonging to a general category. And then you have somebody that belongs to an OBC, or a caste that is lower than, or that is there on the reservation, but doesn't do that well. Probably gets about 75, 80% or something, right? But they get preference over the guy who's got 90%. That is where I think it's unfair. Because in today's day and age, with the way India is moving forward, it is important for us to first correct this divide in society. A divide which divides Indian based on their religion and their caste on one of the most intricate part of growth of any country, which is education. And therefore, now, when you divide that in the mind of that individual, he is already wanting an advantage based on his caste or his religion. And that is where the divide starts. Because you're not thinking as an Indian then. Why should merit not be the reason for the excellence or the growth of any student who has worked just as hard? So there was a girl, for example, in Goa in the NEET who scored the highest, and she
mm,
was from the ST community. And everybody of the ST community and all started to, go around her to congratulate her and click pictures. and whatnot.
Mm.
Should we be happy because she belonged to the ST community, and therefore we should say, great, you've done a great thing, you scored high, or the mere fact that she's done well and done better than everybody else from Goa in the NEET exam? What should be the priority? The priority is that a student, a girl, a young girl worked hard and did it, not that would it make a difference whether she was an ST or
Yes.
a non-ST person. And that's the problem. The problem is the divide exists. Politically, we allowed for this divide to continue. And I have a serious issue with it. And that is what the Muslims use, the Christians use. Sometimes, mostly the Muslims actually, they use it as a tool of victimization. When I was in Israel recently, one of these, so we having a group discussion with minority leaders in Galilee, North Galilee actually.
Mm.
And one of the leaders, who was a former ambassador, tells me, you should understand the plight of the minorities in India, because you come from the Christian minority. See what Modi is doing to the minorities in India, how the atrocities are meted out against them. So I allowed for him to finish, and then I said, okay, first let me correct you. I am not a minority in India. People like you and many other political leaders from my country might want me to think that I'm a minority, but I'm not, because I'm the son of Bharat Mata. No?
Mm.
Do you think a mother distinguishes between majority and minority in her children? I don't know any mother that does that. At least I haven't come across one. For a mother, the child, whether the child is got polio, whether the child is fair and handsome, or whether the child is dark and maybe naughty, to the mother loves the child equally, right? So I'm a son of Bharat Mata. I happen to have Christian faith, Hindu roots. How does that change me? I said, the problem with you, sir, and I'm going to say, don't feel rude, is what I told him, is that you love being a victim. You enjoy it. Why don't you rise up and see your mother for what she really is? Because by playing the victim card, you're only insulting your motherland. I cannot insult my motherland. I can solve the problems that might exist. So, am I a son of Bharat Mata? I'm a very proud son of my country. The mere fact that I'm a Christian does not change anything. My religion does not define my nationality. My
Mm.
commitment to Mother India tells the world whether I'm an Indian or not.
So I think Savio is a very prolific speaker, but also very popular on many channels because you're a little too honest, because you're going against a lot of the politics that is politics with regards to reservation, etc. I think that's a pretty contentious topic, and I appreciate your frankness on the subjects because um, no party is going to address this. So I'm hoping that you, as an individual, are raising awareness, and that's something that I'm sure a large majority of the nation thanks you, because it's not that affirmative action has a lot of detractors. Most people are actually willing to have a lot of welfareism as long as it is appropriately directed towards those that need it most. Unfortunately, because it's
Correct.
a political football, it just affect only those who are already privileged. So that's something that breeds a lot of resentment in much of the
But
population.
I look at it this way: if there has to be a reservation, there has to be for the economically backward
Sure,
classes,
absolutely.
right? Because
Mm.
today I have seen people from other communities doing extremely well for themselves.
Mm.
Okay, there is a certain equitable nature of life that is there in the country at this point of time. I'm
Mm.
not saying it may not exist in other parts. Maybe because I'm in Goa, or the states that I go to might seem to have that balance. But the mere fact is that today, how do you if you're a growing nation, what should be the reason of that growth if not merit? You want a meritorious student to be there, no? When he's either in government, or he's a doctor, or he's an engineer, or he's making bridges. Maybe if you've got somebody who's not qualified enough to be there, but is making your bridge. You might have tragedies after tragedies happening. They say a
Yeah.
doctor who's got 68% compared to a guy who's got 90%. Who would I trust more?
Mm.
So I couldn't care less what politically anybody thinks. I'm just telling you, today as a country we have got intelligence. We've got young people who are working very hard. Everybody's got a mobile phone. Everybody is learning online. Most people are learning online. And if they aren't, we will bring online to them in the coming months and in the years ahead. But create when you are at an equal level, then everybody competes at an equal level. Give that child an opportunity. The guy who's from a general category also, he's also working hard, right? If he's got to 82%, just because you are from a reservation category, didn't make you smarter than the other guy. You should remember that. You
Sure.
need to be fair, and I pray, I hope this country opens up its eyes to merit more than anything else.
In this, I would just like to bring your anecdote about that girl securing the top score, right? That's pretty insulting to her as well. I mean, you can't infantilize so many populations and think that they can only achieve lower
Correct,
percentage or study
correct.
less. So it would be rather insulting, right? So yes, I think that those are important points to remember, and maybe this is a discussion that needs to be a lot more popular. So coming to such discussions, Savio, I'm going to ask you that as citizens, at least the elite, and I'm sure that a lot of the people watching this, it's a small channel, and I thank you very much for coming on this episode, but for people who watch channels like this, it is a population that has access to the internet, that's educated in English, that has access to social media. What I note is that while we scream about democracy, we can go insult the lack of it in our country, we can talk about how we are actually a democracy, all of those views aside, democracy requires citizen participation. So you came first as a citizen of India, wanted to contribute socially, then got into politics because you found that the most effective way of contributing to the country. Why do you think that this is lacking in a lot of people? A lot of people come on social media, they whine about things, they do not contribute to solutions. How do you see that changing?
So I'll give you an example of a very dear friend of mine, probably one of the richest men in business out of Goa, and known all across India. So we were having a discussion on the problems that are there in the country, some within Goa itself. And then he tells me, he says, what I like about you is that you don't care about anybody and you open your mouth and you raise up whatever issues you have to. I don't have the courage to do that. So I looked at him and I said, that's the problem. You are far more wealthier, far more powerful than I am. But what you really are not understanding is that the guy at the other end, who might be a political guy, who might be a political lackey for that matter, is merely a buffoon in most cases. Okay? If he's not understood your value as a businessman and as an intelligent businessman who's proved himself over years, right? And if you have to stoop down to him, means you're letting yourself down. So stand up and question what is wrong if you believe it is wrong, right? So citizens have got a power. The greatest power in a citizen is an ability to change the destiny of a political leader or a political party if they believe they can. Because the power to vote is the biggest power that a citizen has. People don't want to do that. People don't want to take the effort because they know it's a grinding effort to take. To get justice in this country is a grinding effort. And that is why they want to get on with their life and do not want to conflict with anybody. And I understand that. I don't support it, but I understand the pain that goes through. But eventually, if there has to be a difference, it's like us saying that there was no need to fight the British or there was no need to fight the Portuguese, as
Absolutely.
in case
Absolutely.
we Goa, because we would not win, they're more powerful, then we would have never got freedom, right? We would have not been independent. So when things are wrong, it is incumbent on the citizen to wake up and go out and make a difference. You might not win, but how do you know that you can't win unless you try, right? So today, I see citizens as having a lot of power. I see the the advent of technology putting a lot of power into the hands of the common man. If the common man is wise enough to utilize this power wisely and judiciously and with the right intent. See, I say this over and over again. This country is not about a political leader. It is not about a political party. This country is about you and me. It's about the people. It's about the future of the children. Political parties and political leaders come and go. There was the Congress doing very well some time back. We had leaders. Today they are down in the dumps. Today we have the BJP. We have a good leader in Prime Minister Narendra Modi leading the country. Somewhere down the road, Prime Minister Modi is going to go and somebody else is going to come in. Nothing lasts forever. But what lasts forever is India. What will last forever are the legacies we leave for our children. So it is incumbent on us as every citizen to do what is important for setting the foundation for our kids to a better future. If we don't do that, then we can't complain. No, why are you complaining?
Mm.
You can't sit and
Um,
complain and on social media everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. Okay, there's something wrong happening in society. So I'll ask the person, did you file a complaint?
mm,
No, sir. I'll file a complaint. What will happen? I said, then what do you want me to do?
mm. Right. No, those are very pertinent points, especially about the courage. And I will say that I've actually approached people on social media saying that I find you very articulate. Why don't you write something over here? They prefer to remain anonymous and just, talk about things in a small tweet, perhaps complain, etc. Now, I would say that that fear is often unjustified. The fear of cancellation is much more virtual than real, because we all have, this is not a funded channel, but if you don't start, you never know how far you're going to go. And if you don't start, you don't actually have to fear as much as you think that you have to fear, because most people don't actually care about your politics. But also, with regards to environment, with regards to any cause that one holds dear, for example, alleviation of poverty, if you see people around you who are poor, is there not a way to fund a charitable organization that at least feeds, we see that for animals a lot. At least animal activists have that, they are socially contributive. But apart from that, when it comes to society and human society as such, we don't see that contribution. People are very self-centered and somehow do not go out of
Not,
their way to
not,
affect
not
someone.
really, Sadhika. I think there are a lot of organizations
No,
across.
the ones on social media, the ones complaining on
True.
social media, this
See,
mass of
the
people.
fear. Is it wrong to be fearful? The answer is no. It's all right
Mm,
to be fearful. Okay. Fear of loss is a very, very strong emotion
sure.
because you're always fearing some sort of loss. But what I want people to understand that more than the power of the fear of loss is the possibility of the hope to gain. That is more important. This entire world, I often say, runs on two philosophies. One is fear of loss and hope to gain.
Mm,
Why not
yes.
focus on a hope to gain rather than the fear of loss? Fear of loss, yes, is real, can happen. But why not take the chance in the hope to gain over them? Because maybe the gain will then lead to something better.
Perhaps they cannot
Everything,
imagine the gains.
perhaps, but every beautiful, precious metal in this world has to grow to a certain amount of pain to be recognized as a precious metal. Gold, diamond, what are they in their raw form? They have to be shaped, they have to be burnt, They have to go through the fire. They have to be chiseled, and then they come into the real shape, right? So if you want to make a difference as a citizen, you have the right. The Constitution gives you that right. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you want to make that difference, you have to take that first step, that first leap of faith, believing in yourself to stand up to do something right. It's easy to sit down and criticize, criticize, criticize. It's very difficult to make the difference. And I think it's important for citizens to stand up and make a difference.
Do you see that the people who do stand up are often politically motivated? For example, we have protesters for hire, and we've literally got protesters for hire who complain about parties that haven't paid them to protest. So this whole economy that survives on inorganic protests. It's not no longer organic. For example, if you don't want a protected lake to be encroached on by builders or something, it requires socially aware people to come forward and protest, and not just the elite. It requires everybody dependent on that ecosystem for their livelihood to come together and protest. um, or maybe whatever is the cause. Do you see that that has gained a bad that people do not believe in organic protests anymore? For example, the Free the Temple movement. It's not very protest friendly. It's just something that's in the court of law. So,
Um, well, every issue has the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. So there was one issue that we were sort of analyzing, and it had to do with an environmental issue in one of the most promising states in the country. And when I was called to analyze the entire campaign to see what really were the friction points and the conflict points happening over there, I realized that about 10% of them were people with vested interest.
mm,
Okay. 90% of the people were genuinely concerned about the environment. Okay. And the government organization was careful in its approach towards that project, and, and also done the right measures that were required to certify the project to international standards and then as an environmentally safe project on various parameters. But it failed to communicate that
right.
at the ground level. So, really, the conflict was green versus green. Okay. The government saying that it is more green with the project, and the environmentalists and the concerned citizens saying no, by this project the green aspect will be detrimental. They will it would you would destroy the ecosystem. All they had to do was communicate and arrive at a consensus together that listen, everything is okay, and eventually they did, right? Of course, some people still have conflict on that project, but the project's becoming a reality now. So are they environmental activists that are paid? I'm sure they are. Are they activists that are paid? I'm sure they are. But are they genuine people concerned about the environment, concerned about certain ills that are happening in society? The answer is also yes. So you can't look at all of them with one paintbrush. You have to look at each case and investigate it for the causes and the points that have been raised. Eventually, you must understand that while Narendra Modi is working towards a corruption free India, it is a cesspool, right? And it's a cesspool and a system that has been corrupt for a very long period of time. So you're going to have to understand that it takes time to allow for the system to correct itself. Just like the system was allowed to become corrupt, to uncorrupt itself is going to take time. And therefore, we as citizens must be alert to bring it to the notice of the Prime Minister and certain government officials that this is the corrupt practice happening out here. You should not be afraid, is what I'm saying. Don't give up a fight because there were people with vested interests. You keep your integrity intact and fight for a cause you believe.
You mentioned corruption, and one is corruption, and I want to come to a second point that you mentioned, communication as well. So, with regards to corruption, I've heard you talk about it previously on other videos as well. You acknowledge, you're, I think, one of those rare politicians who acknowledges that the corruption is inherent, and this is something that affects people at the ground level. People who vote, sure, but everybody from buying a house to it's obviously not as much as before, because you don't need to register for a landline or a phone or a car and pay somebody off. But it's still very, very real for most people to get the for example, jobs, government jobs, even for the what is called the D category jobs, right? Um there are scams happening there. So these things are very, even during COVID, we've seen quite a few issues cropping up with regards to corruption. How does the common person gain that trust back in a political system? Because, yes, one of the reasons for voting the BJP to power and one of their main campaign issues was the tackling of corruption. Do you think a bureaucratic overhaul would help, or is something that, because the ED just arrested IS couple who had 100 crore properties worth hundreds of crores, FTs worth a few scores more. So,
You see, Savika, so the corruption is a vicious circle.
mm,
Okay, it does not only involve the politicians. It does not only involve the bureaucrats. It does not involve the government officers. It also involves the people themselves,
mm,
the citizens, the voters themselves. Okay, I'll give you an example. So I have a friend uh, who is the chairman of a large company and was very anti-corruption crusader. You know, we must fight corruption, and very good. I was very inspired by his conversations. And then one day he had a problem in Goa, and to solve that problem, he had to make a certain payment to a certain government official. And then he was telling me about it, and I looked at him with utmost empathy, saying that, my friend, you were holding the torchlight and vowed to fight corruption, but now you're willing to pay a certain amount of money to a government officer, which you're narrating to me, because you want your work done. Isn't that not hypocritical of you?
but there is a power differential, no? Now, if a cop, and this has happened as um a driver, a random cab driver who does not have the power to go against a police person, just stops the car. Not broken any traffic rules. He just stops the car and says that, hey, you took a U-turn where you were not allowed to, and seen that happen. Uh, Typically, what are they supposed to do? Because they cannot
So
be
I'll give you
inconvenienced.
another. It happened 2 days ago. Okay.
Right.
So I have a Twitter friend. I'm not going to take her name. She's in Goa. As in she's come on a holiday to Goa. Okay. And I get sometimes I get very odd requests. This by far was one of the oddest requests somebody's made to me. So she's frantically calling me, and I was in a meeting, and then she sends me a message saying that, hey, listen, hey, Savio, listen, I've got caught by the cops for not wearing a helmet. I have to pay a fine. Can you get me out of it?
Right?
Okay. So I replied back to her. I said, no, I cannot get you out of it. Please pay the fine and wear your helmet and ride the bike in Goa. So, of course, she was courteous enough to say thank you, but I don't know how much bad word she would have given me in her head.
Right.
But that's the fact,
Mm.
right?
But no, with regards to perhaps more egregious practices, um, For example, there is the threat of violence when it comes to discussing corruption in certain states. It's very real for a lot of citizens who do make those payments for those jobs, teaching jobs, clerical jobs, sweeping jobs, even. So they pay off certain people. And if they were to speak against such um, practices themselves, and these are people coming from the villages, so obviously if they had the capacity to control these situations, they probably would not make those payments. They would probably talk about how they're being forced to make those payments. Now they've
No, but
made the
that's,
payments, they don't get it. And
Sarika, that's where I'm saying no. The problem is if you don't have a system in place that works on merit across the board. So you start with education. Now we put everything on education online, right? So let's say you want to get into a college in Goa. The Goa Department of Higher Education allows for all that data of people who have applied to be there online. And it tells you who has been admitted, who has not been admitted to which college, and what has been got and what has not been got. Now, if somebody were to want to say, put their kids who've got lesser marks in a particular college, then they'll have to beat that system, right? So, the way forward to ending corruption is systems, technology, and systems. So,
systems
today,
without
when
separish.
correct, you bring in systems that allows merit to be the only criteria for selection. Merit, whether be marks, merit, whether be physical fitness, where merit be XYZ, you set the parameters. But when you start getting into this system of offering jobs based on money that you want, now why does the politician want to make money? Nobody ever asks that question. Why is he wanting to make money? Because he has to pay out that money. He's paying the voter that money, remember? The
Yes.
voter is not necessarily 50% of his votes, in most cases, will come through some sort of benefit he is made to that particular voter, right? Today, in during the elections, when I went out, I didn't pay a single vote because I will not. I will go back again and contest. You don't want to vote for me, that's fine. But I won't pay you. I'll pay you to work. You want a job, you want to work in one of our companies, you want to do something, you want money to start a business, I will invest in that. But I will never pay you to vote for me. Because I won't insult myself and I won't insult your right. But the problem is just that. Today, politicians, even the good guys who come into politics, get corrupt.
Right.
Because the system is corrupt, because the voter himself, some of them, are corrupt. And so they have no comms. Somebody comes to you and says, okay, you need to give me 5 lakhs for my son to get a job, a government job. That 5 lakhs is like 1 month's salary, 1 year salary, right? But he's got the job for the rest of his life. So they are saying, okay, I'll give away the 5 lakhs,
Exactly. Right.
right? So it's happening. Is it happening? Of course it's happening. Can it be corrected? The question is, how do you correct it? How do you correct it without upsetting the apple cart? Is by putting systems. Technology-based systems that allow for recruitment, that allow for admissions. That is when the difference will happen. So today there are people willing to spend. I've had calls come to me, and the problem with me is I'm too blunt. Okay, and I will
I
tell
see
you
that.
nicely, right? I will tell you nicely. If you don't listen nicely, then I will tell you in another way that you might not like. Don't assume because you are one is a political person that he's going to bend backwards if you throw money to him. It doesn't work that way, but not with everybody. So I had somebody call me up saying, "Hey, listen, we need to get admission for our kid somewhere in Goa. We are willing to pay all that kind of money." I said, "Listen, I'm the wrong guy you should be calling because firstly, it irritates me when a child is done terrible. Instead of you correcting that child and telling him to or her to do better, you want to throw money and deprive somebody else that has worked hard to get that position. Why would I do that? No, but it was a bad time. I said, how could it was a good time of that kid, no, the other kid. That other kid worked hard, got the right merit. Why should I give it to you?
Mm.
What do you want to pay? 60 lakhs, 1 crore? I don't need that money. Those guys in the political circle also don't need that money. My advice to you is go and tell your kid to go back and study and get better marks. Just because you have money doesn't mean you spoil your kids.
Yeah, well, parenting. The second point that I wanted to discuss is communication. So when we were discussing the activism, you mentioned that the government failed to communicate certain points effectively. Do you see that across the board with regards to
Yes.
CAA, with regards to the metro construction, with regards to any developmental activity? We see a barrage of negative commentary about it, but the pushback is reactive, it's not proactive. Do you see that communication failing?
Well, actually, I do. In fact, that's what I told the Prime Minister when I met him,
Mm-hmm.
along with my co author, Amit Bagaria. We highlighted to the Prime Minister with all humility at that point of time that I think the biggest weakness of the government is its communication strategies. The communications are always reactive, they're never proactive. They are always defensive, never offensive. Even if it is offensive, it is bordering on aggressive defense rather than being, assertive offensive. You know, what does that mean? It means that we don't owe anybody an explanation if we are right.
Mm.
Number one, we don't need to know what Rahul Gandhi is doing and what the world thinks of him and how much media might give him the coverage. I don't really care because I've said it on a television channel and I continue to say it that, in my opinion, in the animal farm, that's how I look and describe people because I tend to understand the nature of a beast. In my understanding, Rahul Gandhi is a donkey. He's a beast of burden because he's got a lot of burden on him, burden of the legacy of his family, burden of the MOU that he signed with China, burden of the aspirations that his own sycophants put on him that you're the next prime minister. Therefore, he's a beast of burden. The beast of burden is a donkey. And therefore, in my opinion, Rahul Gandhi is a donkey, right? But the media will carry information about him. They will want to talk about him. They will want to deliberate about him. Well, good for them. You're really good for him because I don't know what he's adding to the country in terms of knowledge. I don't know what he's adding as far as solutions. See, democracy, everybody has a right to have an opinion. The opposition has its right, and I believe that they should be given a voice. But that voice has to be telling the people of India what you can do better than the existing ruling. It
Mm.
cannot be this continuous whining and whining. Politics and political discourse over a period of time in this country has turned to nothing but a tutu meme between ruling and opposition.
Mm.
There is no content, there is no value, there is no addition to the knowledge of the people that come and watch information either on television or on print or digital. It is just this constant negative uh, comments and hate being spread all around. This country is much more than that. There's so much good happening in this country. There's so
Mm.
much beauty in the living together of people of different community, the diversity that exists in India, and the unity that exists with that diversity is really the beauty of India. So what Rahul Gandhi thinks, what Manishankar Iyer thinks, what Digvijay Singh thinks, what even some of the own BJP leaders in retaliation to what the others think, I really don't give a damn about it. What I care about is what does that guy on the ground think? Are we adding to his knowledge quotient? Today, people are saying India is not doing too well, the economy is bad, unemployment is there. Let's look at all those factors. How do you fight unemployment? You don't. Does employment mean giving everybody a government job? If everybody's going to
Absolutely.
get a government job,
Right.
then there is not going to be any money left in the treasuries of the government
Mm.
if everybody in India is going to be employed. So what do? You increase entrepreneurship. You make it possible for young enterprises to go ahead and talk and work, for the country as entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs create jobs. A guy who puts out a food cart He hires two people to work with him. He's creating jobs. That's what you do.
Mm.
Make people believe that there is much more than a government job. That's the first route of where you strike corruption down.
Yes.
Instead of him paying 5 lakhs to get a government job, tell him to invest 5 lakhs in starting a business of his own. At least he will earn honest money.
Absolutely. Why I asked about communication is one of the things, and you've mentioned education here quite a few times, is that when it comes to policies and the projected results of these policies, there the masses are uneducated and will continue to be so because that's not their job. If somebody is going farming and they think that they will get free electricity or free water supply 24/7, they take it at face value. Now it is up to certain parties, whether it's the educated citizens, to counter that with a large volume of information that speaks for some other solutions. For example, that okay, if we have this policy in place, these are the pitfalls of the said policy and this is an alternative solution. We can ask our MLA to introduce this system instead. We don't want free electricity, but we want more investment, small scale investments, or microfinancing loans, or something of that sort, or a medical college setup, or some other college setup, polytechnic institute setup in our village, whatever. The solution has to be an alternative to the proposed policy. So a policy level understanding and a communication around that policy is not available. How do you see that changing?
So, at many a times, I think elected representatives themselves are not very well informed about the changing aspects of technology and how they can make their constituencies better, or
Mm,
what is the nature of their constituency, where work can be improved, where economics can be better, you know. So when I look at my constituency, and I look at it very economically, because I'm a business guy at the end of the day. My idea is, how can I put money into the hands of my constituents without me having to spend money during elections, right? The whole idea is for them to have an economic growth. So we had a discussion for something known as a model village. It's an example I'm giving you. So I petitioned the Prime Minister's office. Then I petitioned the Rajya Sabha MP from Goa. I requested my good friend Mr. Vinay Tendulkar, saying that you have a certain sort of criteria to fit under the SAGI scheme, which is the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana, for a particular panchayat, a model village. Can you bring that to Velim, which is one of the village panchayats over there of the larger constituency? And he agreed, and we decided to bring in the Velim model village. Now, when the panchayat and the MLA was told about it, they came back with certain suggestions that they wanted done as per the model village. What were their suggestions? Their suggestion was, let's repair this road. Let's repair the steps that are going to a particular church place. Let's repair this lighting over here, etc., etc. And then I was invited to speak at that particular meeting. And for some reason, there was some confusion where the MLA was not called and the panchayat member was not called. Not my problem, really. I went because I was invited. So I spoke about setting up EV vehicle stations in the 7 panchayats, which I would fund myself and put of my own brand of Hariyan EVs, about 10 in each of the 7 panchayats, and for starting with the Velim panchayat itself first. So people can use it for intra constituency travel without them
mm,
taking their bikes and cars. Because in Goa, a lot of them have their bikes and cars, 2 bikes, 2 cars.
right.
Willem is a very, very rich constituency in some parts. Okay. So use your EV vehicle. So that was idea number one. Idea number two was the primary healthcare center would have a, a technologically driven machine for which we would have invested money, as in me personally. so that they could do their ECGs, their blood checkups, everything with one person manning this particular machine. It's an electronic machine and fabulous looking thing. Your heart, your pulse, everything can be done instead of them traveling all the way to the hospital, at a village level. So they either would have to come to Shinshini or a Margao to do it. That was point number 2. Point number 3 was to make Velim Eco Pencils over there, set up a small unit to do it, thereby also then extending it to something known as Pay for Garbage. Pay for Garbage was a system that we were trying to bring in, an app-based system where we would send around, basically set up a van that would collect garbage in that village through the panchayat, and teach them how to segregate the garbage into 7 different layers of segregation. And for their garbage that they were giving us, we would give them an incentive. That incentive could be a movie ticket, could be 20-30% discount at a restaurant or a shopping center or something of that nature. So those were ideas number 3, 4. They were looking at me, and the MP knew these ideas, and the rest of them were like, oh, really, this is what you want to do? I said, yes, this is what I want to do. You can do it? I said, yes. Do you need money from the government? I said, no. Now, can you give me the permissions? They're still apparently scratching their head around what I've said, and they haven't got back yet. So I told the member of parliament, when they are ready for me, I will go and I will put this. If they still want to continue repairing the roads as a Velim model village, they're most welcome to do that. That's their right. But then we will not be the model village that we aimed to be. We will just be a normal village, like thousands of villages in India, and you would have made no difference to anybody, right? So that's the problem. And the MLA apparently was very upset. So his people started to get onto social media saying that a losing candidate is coming and hijacking, work in the Velim constituency. And I was like, okay. I mean, yes, it's a fact that I did lose the elections. I did my best. I was too new to understand what needs to be done. But you can't take away the fact that my ideas are better than yours, right? And I will implement my ideas whether you like it or not. Because it is my government.
But it is eventually hard on the common citizen when you have to enforce like this. For example, it should typically be the MLA who also does something in competition to perhaps counter your social services provided. So they can come up with their own plans, and a competition of doing good is always beneficial to the citizen instead of calling it hijacking.
I'll tell you this recent example, which I told you I was late today. I was supposed to discuss with you at 11. So what has happened was there was contamination in a particular river or water body. We went, we spotted it. The Goa Pollution Control Board has acted on it. The report has come. But the MLA came in much later, started to make some noise, and told the media that, I spoke to the chairman of the Goa Pollution Control Board. That's why they have done all this. And I'm saying, okay, man, if you spoke, you spoke. But just have a look at the report that the Goa Pollution Control Board has made and see whose complaint it is. In that complaint, it is written, copy sent to Savio Rodrigues and his address, because he was a complainant. So if the complainant is me, the guy who's got the work done has to be me, right? Now, if the MLA wants to take credit, I'm okay with it. Yeah, these are small things. We're too small in the scheme of things. I'd rather be a bigger person.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you are interested in such conversations. Thanks so much.